Thank you for tuning in to the next edition of FU Fibro How I Found Happy. I am Emmy Nesser, and I appreciate you taking the time to listen to what I have to say. So, for as long as I can remember, I've always liked to write. I like to write poetry, I've written books. I've never really gotten paid for it, but it's just always been my hobby. And then for about 2 years, I wrote a monthly article in our local magazine called Rochester Woman. And sometimes they were sexy, sometimes they were silly, and sometimes they were serious. One month I decided to write an article called Fighting Fibro with Laughter. And that was the article that gave me the idea to write a manuscript. And that is what this whole thing is based on. So I thought I would share the article with you. It's not that long, but it kind of gives you an idea of my story, where I'm coming from, and why I'm here to share my story with you. When I was 13, I started having random pain in different parts of my body. By college, the symptoms got worse and the night terrors began. At 25, my dad was in a horrific accident. I became pregnant with my first child, and the pain intensified. 3 months after giving birth to my son, I found myself pregnant again, and the pain was unbearable. Since then, I have never gone a day without some pain somewhere. And to make the situation even more interesting, the pain isn't mutually exclusive. For some reason, it feels the need to travel to different places in my body so that no part ever feels neglected. Lucky me. Over the years, I went to a myriad of doctors. I had numbness in my extremities, so I sought out a neurologist. I had pain in my joints, so I went to an orthopedist. Neither physician could come up with an explanation. I kept going back to my general practitioner. He didn't know what to do with me. His best answer was to have me try a plethora of medications, which did nothing but cause secondary problems. He suggested I see a nutritionist since my diet could have been a contributing factor. The nutritionist told me I had a better diet than she did, and she couldn't help me. I did acupuncture for a while, but it was expensive and time-consuming. And even though it relieved some of the symptoms, I still hurt. I went to a slew of chiropractors, but discovered that any kind of adjustment or manipulation caused a bizarre inflammatory response that led to immobility and even greater pain. I saw several massage therapists on a regular basis, but the relief was temporary, and the service was also very painful. By 30 years old, I thought I was going crazy. I finally got a referral to a rheumatologist. At first, she didn't suspect that I had fibromyalgia because I wasn't overweight, lethargic, or depressed. Back then, those were the classic symptoms, in addition to inexplicable pain. Regardless of how I felt, however, I always made a point of trying to look good, so my outward appearance didn't give anything away. I always tried to follow the old adage that the better you look, the better you feel. Having people know how I was feeling wasn't going to make me feel any better, so I focused on looking as good as possible and doing whatever I could to be happy and make every day a good one. My outgoing personality and positive outlook have saved me, and I have my parents to thank for that. They were very positive people who focused on joy over adversity. Fortunately, I've never suffered with depression. I've had issues with anxiety, but that's because having continual injuries and constant pain has made me very anxious over the years. But no matter how crappy I was feeling, I never wanted pity. It serves no purpose. So I made it impossible for others to know what I was going through. For many years, I suffered in silence. Testing for fibro is much different than testing for other diseases. All it took was a simple trigger point test to determine if I had it or not. The rheumatologist put pressure on 18 parts of my body with her finger. She told me that if 11 of the points were sensitive, then I had it. The test seemed obscure and a bit ridiculous, but that was the only indicator that had to test for this bizarre affliction. All 18 points hurt. That was when she agreed something was definitely wrong with me. More importantly, she sympathized with my plight and didn't think I was crazy. I knew I wasn't a hypochondriac and that my pain was real. And I can't tell you how good it felt to put a name on all the weird things that were going on in my body. Unfortunately, she told me that until I experienced arthritic concerns, there was nothing she could do to help me, and insurance would not cover any more visits with her. I was on my own. So now what? I'm told I've got this obscure autoimmune disease that doesn't have a cause or a cure. She didn't have much to tell me about fibro, so I went and bought a few books on the subject. They didn't offer many more options than I had already tried. It did feel good to know I wasn't alone in the world and that other people suffered like I did. So I did what we all do in this day and age. I surfed the internet for everything I could find about this weird condition that I had. It was so frustrating to have a doctor say there's no definitive cause or treatment for fibro. Over the years, I've come up with a few theories of my own. I truly believe that physical or emotional trauma can trigger the condition. I've helped people who have been diagnosed with fibro to go back to the time when it started and try to remember what was going on in that point of their lives. You'd be surprised how many times a life tragedy or a bad accident was the catalyst. There were only a few medications 20 years ago that were prescribed to alleviate some of the symptoms, but they had a lot of side effects that could be worse than the primary complaint. In some cases, death was even a side effect. No thanks. I like being alive. When I was diagnosed, antidepressants were the most common drugs that were prescribed. I did try them, even though I wasn't depressed. The outcome? I got depressed and cried a lot. Fortunately, it was temporary. One caveat to having fibro is that you can be hypersensitive to medications, which can make treatment even more difficult. There were things I could try to feel better, but for the most part, I was on my own to deal with the pain, numbness, and exhaustion. One of the things that made it bearable was the realization the disease wasn't life-threatening. My sister had stage 3 breast cancer during this time. She had extensive radiation and chemotherapy after enduring a complicated mastectomy. She could have died. I'll admit my issues are inconvenient and uncomfortable, but they won't kill me. So what has helped me deal with my fibro? Love, laughter, and writing. When I was in my mid-20s, I changed careers to work in the salon business with my husband, Mark. I love working with him. He has been the most supportive man to me, professionally and personally. I also have 3 children who have brought me so much joy. After my second child was born, I went to beauty school and I learned how to wax. I couldn't believe how fun it was to rip hair off of women's bodies. I decided this could be a good service to bring to the Mark and Me salon. Suddenly, I became a ridiculously busy Brazilian wax technician. I realized that if I was going to do something to another person that was going to cause him or her pain, I needed to make the experience fast and funny. Since then, I have spent my career making people laugh with crazy stories about things clients do or say. It's unbelievable how a client's reaction to getting waxed will provide stories, expressions, and shenanigans that are hysterical. One day I realized that laughter became my way of dealing with the pain that I felt during the day. So over a decade ago, I started blogging funny stories about my job. It made me happy to know that I could make people smile when they woke up in the morning. And since the morning is an extremely painful time for me, I found that writing made me feel better as well. In fact, I discovered that writing was so cathartic that I actually wrote 3 nonfiction books about Brazilians for the same reason. How could a book called The Happy Hoo-Ha not make you smile? Laughter has made my life so much fuller and has made living with constant pain a lot more bearable. And putting the stories in print has kept the joy going. If you are suffering with chronic pain, think about keeping a journal or writing a blog. It doesn't have to be about the pain. It can be about anything. Heck, I wrote 3 books about ripping out pubic hair. And I didn't stop there. After I finished the Happy Hoo-Ha trilogy, I started writing an edgy romance series called A Promise of Passion. I had so much fun writing about sex that I ended up with 5 books in the series. Although I really haven't made much money writing these books, it has been a very satisfying hobby for me. Not only do I enjoy entertaining people, telling a story has become a necessary outlet for me. Writing has brought incredible joy in my life. It has been the perfect diversion to the obstacles that I have had to deal with. My current manuscript is called FU Fibro. It's a motivational memoir that I hope to get published one day. In the meantime, I've started this YouTube channel with that name to hopefully give others a little hope. So you aren't a person who likes to write. That's okay. Find a hobby that makes you happy. How about puzzling, coloring, or gardening? The more positivity you can add in your life, the better you will feel. Am I tired? Absolutely. Do I have a list of body parts that always hurt? I sure do. Are they life-threatening? Nope. Am I letting the fibro win? Not in this lifetime. In fact, I hope to coin the expression FU Fibro so others with this annoying condition will feel like they have more control over their bodies and their lives. I hope you all have a happy day. Thank you so much for listening. It means the world to me.